Hi, I'm Joy Summers, and I do the midday show here at Way FM. And I absolutely love the story that we have today for the world's biggest small group. I heard the story growing up in Sunday school, and I always thought it was weird that Elijah was fed by birds. Not a big bird fan myself, so I find it really an interesting thing. And I'm thinking if that was my choice, I probably wouldn't want to eat the food that the birds brought. But in this story, it's sort of life or death for Elijah. So of course he accepts it. But I'm finding there's a lot more to this story other than that. And if you've noticed through this Old Testament, what's up with these evil kings? Like a lot of evil kings. And I was reading a little bit before the passage even started for today about these really evil rulers. They're killing each other off, trying to control the people. And then comes Ahab, and it says that he's even more evil than all the kings before him. And they were pretty evil, so that's terrible. And then he marries Jezebel, like another big no-no, because as we all know, she was horrible as well. We still call evil women Jezebels today because of how awful she was. And she influenced her husband, and before you know it, all the people are worshiping this idol Baal, because that's what Ahab has them doing. And during this time period, God is speaking to his people through his prophets. And Elijah is the prophet at the time, and I love that during the story, I feel like God is teaching Elijah to trust in him, just as he's teaching his people to trust in him. Because God says, Elijah, I want you to go and I want you to tell King Ahab that there's going to be a famine through the land. There's going to be no water, the crops aren't going to grow. So that's going to happen until you say it's going to be over. He does that, and of course, the king gets a little mad, tries to kill him. So Elijah's on the run for his life, which I'd be a little nervous if I obeyed what God told me to do and my life was immediately in danger. But God leads Elijah to this brook, that famous brook where he gets a little boat of water every day. And it says that ravens come and feed him at morning and at night. And I think that's a key point. It's not like the ravens came and they brought him like food for the week. They brought him even food for the day. He had to wait in the morning to have just enough food for that meal and at night to have just enough food. And I'm the kind of person that I never want just enough for the moment. I say, can I get the week's supply, please? And I get frustrated when that's not the way that God works. But I think this is how God was teaching Elijah to trust him. Because what I've been learning in my faith is that God gives us what we need when we need it, and not before. And I so often say, God, okay, I think I'm going to be needing this, coming for this trial that's in my life, or I see a difficulty coming next week, next month. Can you kind of give me what I need to face that now? And God doesn't work that way, because if he did, we wouldn't depend on him. And so I find it really interesting that he only gives Elijah what he needs for the moment. And then Elijah's brook just sort of dries up. And if I was Elijah at this point, I'd be like, God, what are you doing? I don't understand. Do you want me to die out here? And God says, no, I want you to go into the city, and there's a woman there. Ask her for some food and water. So like a good prophet, Elijah obeys. He does that and finds out that this woman only has enough food for her and her son to have one more meal, and then they expect to die. And so I'm sure he's thinking, I can't ask this woman for her last bit of food. And God says, she's the one I want to use. Do it. And so she gives Elijah this food and has a little bit left for her and her son. And God ends up providing exactly the amount she needs to feed her and her son every day after that. Do you see the correlation? How, again, God is he's teaching someone, and he's teaching Elijah, trust me, I'm going to give you exactly what you need when you need it. Not before, only in that moment. And I struggle with that so much in my life. I struggle to accept that God's going to give us what we need when we need it, because that creates that bond of trust. And I see that throughout this story. And I know that you see that throughout the Old Testament, that God is teaching his people to trust in him. And I think he's still teaching his people that, because that's a difficult thing for us to sort of not get the big picture and have to sort of walk with those baby steps, saying, okay, God, I'm going to trust you in this moment. I don't understand what you're doing. I don't know what's around the bend. I don't exactly understand this, but I don't think Elijah did either. And yet he trusted God one step at a time, and God took care of him, and he revealed that he was trustworthy. And we know that's true. So if you are feeling like it's tough to trust God right now, know that you're not the only one who feels that way, and know that there are so many stories in the Bible of other people who struggled to trust God too. And yet God revealed himself and said, you know what? Stick with me. And in the moment when you need it, press into me and I'll give you what you need. And so this story was such an encouragement to me. I hope it was to you too. Thanks for hanging out with me.